Hello everyone, this is Stephen James Peterson. In fact, it's actually Stephen James Cervantes. We'll get into the name change here in the future. I'm just uploading this to see if all the gears are working. I did a video test on Substack Live earlier today, so consider this my audio test. I want to see if I can actually get all the different mediums that I prefer to use done via one place. And in that, tying into Substack has been enjoyable. Now, is it the panacea of all my needs? No. I can't just do everything all from one app. Yet, it is better at putting everything together than most everything else that I have found recently. The one app that I miss the most, though, is Anchor.fm, because most of my original podcasts were all produced via Anchor. And when Spotify took that away, I was disheartened because they didn't offer the same quality of editing that you could do just through your device. Now, don't get me wrong. I used to have an entire podcast studio, very nice microphones, very nice recorders. But at the end of the day, the workflow was so annoying that it wasn't fun to podcast anymore. But when I can whip my phone out and I can share my thoughts with you or address something pertinent while it's still prescient, that was what I always enjoyed about Anchor. So here we are now. It's 2026. It's been 6 years since I recorded, and I'm okay with that. If you're on Substack, you might be seeing my old podcast beginning to populate the platform. And I'm happy for that. I had thought I had lost those interviews with people like Tim Michael, Kevin Tabosa, and others. What's really fun about this is I have some really heavy hitters that have been sitting in the background for a period of time that had accepted to be interviewed by me here. And since that time, over the 6 years from making those inroads with those individuals, new creators have arrived on the scene. Now, TikTok's nice, but it's limited. And the life expectancy of the app, politically or otherwise, is limited. The amount of types of recordings that you can do, again, limited. While in different ways it holds a place in my heart still. And forgive me, I never thought I would like TikTok. But I see why many others enjoy it. However, it's so limited in what you can actually accomplish with it. I love writing. I love long-form writing. In the past, I used to do all of that over on LinkedIn. Now, the sad part about that is nobody ever responded, because the algorithm would always nuke anything that I put out there of any real content. If you bring up issues or try to create awareness around different subject matter, that goes against the status quo for LinkedIn, and they punish you for it. Digital jail is something that I have lived in for years. Things happened in the last 6 years. When the Canadian truckers were protesting and they were headed to Ottawa, apparently someone in Canada didn't like my color commentary, so they nuked my bank accounts. I'm an American citizen. I don't even understand how the Canadians were able to take away my banking access because I made fun of former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau? I believe it was a beaver and moose joke, honestly. There might have been an otter involved. But at the end of the day, it was political satire. It was sardonic humor. I was poking fun at some very real issues. So let's listen to a UND student fly over. I do believe aircraft should have mufflers. Now, as he feathers his throttle in to make his final turn, let's return to this. How is the Canadian government allowed to impose banking sanctions against me as a U.S. citizen? This is just one of the many questions that I have. In the past, I spoke about business development. There were certain naiveties that I had at that time. I did not expect that over that period of over 6 years, that the coffee production business that I had been building with a team of friends stretched literally over halfway around the world, from Sri Lanka back to Fargo. That when we had finally gotten to approving the packaging, approving the logos, making sure that we met all the federal guidelines for importation into the United States, that then President Trump would nuke all of those trade agreements that had laid into place that were about to allow me to open up a new coffee brand in the United States. And I don't mean co-packaging and buying someone else's beans. This was going to be a collaborative effort between coffee farmers in Sri Lanka, who needed the money much more than some co-packager in Milwaukee or elsewhere, that we were going to change lives for the better. Yet, with the stroke of an executive order pen, my entire development that had been put together over a period of over 3 years, with a lot of investment beyond just time from me, would be unilaterally nuked out of the water just because of someone's opinion. No congressional oversight. And with that, I thought perhaps with a change in the presidency, that I'd be protected, that I'd be safe. And this time, when I started the new business development, I focused on government sales. And while some people may not like Customs and Border Patrol, the teams that I was supporting, the teams that were purchasing from me, would be the rescue teams like Boar Star. These are the heroes that go out and save people in places like the Sonoran Desert and beyond, all along the southern border. And there's other teams along the northern border. But they put their life on the line to save strangers, non-American citizens. And right after I won some of those contracts to help those warriors, Biden did exactly to me what Trump did to me. With an executive order, without congressional oversight, he changed the regulatory landscape, the compliance rules, and nuked a business that I'd spent over $500,000 in development money on, and took me out at the knees. We had just secured the contract, but because of his executive order, again, I was destroyed. It was cathartic. I thought perhaps one of the two parties would be better for business development in the United States. You'd always think that the Republicans would be in the lead of that. Or perhaps the compassion supposed compassion of the Democrats would be. However, both parties, both presidents, destroyed everything that I'd worked on. Again, it had been another period of at least 3 years that I'd built into that business. Trade lines that I had put together with different organizations and companies, some of which were internationally sourcing items for me. Names that if I said them out loud, and if you were even ancillary or near the outdoors industry, you would immediately recognize. Not small players. And I had their support to move forward with their blessing. Yet, at the end of the day, my pursuit of freedom, my pursuit of happiness, has repeatedly been destroyed unilaterally by executive order more than once now. It breaks my heart. I did a lot of work to become self-taught about international business development. I never had the money to go to school for that, nor did I ever like the curriculum, because everything that I had discovered in college and university was usually 10 to 15 to 20 years out of place. I don't need to hear about something that used to work when the current regulatory and compliance landscape is vastly different than what they teach you in the classroom. I saved my college money that I could have spent, and instead I withdrew and used it to build businesses. Anytime I try to do something at a national or international level, I get kicked in the junk. I guess us regular people here in the United States aren't allowed to build lives for ourselves. This I don't understand. I have a copy of the Constitution right here in my briefcase with me. We can read it chapter and verse perhaps here and try to understand which parts of it are no longer applicable. It is my belief that this entire nation has been following very unconstitutional paths through the federal government now for decades. What other people need to understand is anytime you read the Constitution, that is not separate from the Declaration of Independence. They're married, more so than even husband and wife. They're like conjoined twins. One document is necessary to understand the other. You cannot hold just the Bill of Rights up without understanding the rest of the Constitution. You cannot hold up the Constitution without the Bill of Rights to have understanding. And in the same way, you must always include the Declaration of Independence. Now, in that 6-year hiatus, I don't think most people understand or knew that I had run for Congress, that I was seeking a House of Representatives seat. I was nominated, by the way. I didn't seek that position. I was asked to represent a group, the Libertarians of North Dakota, to be specific. And they nominated me to be their chosen person to represent their signal. Yet, as well as that might sound, the problem was they had no funding. I ran a congressional campaign on a total of $150. So for $150, getting 14,000 plus votes, I consider a minor success. Now, does that count as a Sigma 6? No. But some other work that I've been doing recently does count as a Six Sigma event. I'm not going to give away the whole plot. Not now. This is a reintroduction of where I'm going to be coming from. Just like if you're reading my stories, my essays, and my articles, and my notes over on Substack, you can't just cherry pick one story and believe that you have understanding. It's a body of work. The same thing that I had attempted to do over a period of years over at LinkedIn. Now, I'm going to attempt to scrape some of those old stories out of there, but it takes so much time. It's borderline painful because every time I request the download of my information that would allow me to just copy and paste all of those old articles that I wrote, LinkedIn never gives them to me. I never get the email. I never get the download link for the zip drive, for the zip file, mind you. I've requested it repeatedly. I've tried to work directly with their support team, yet nothing happens. I bring this up because I would love to include historical writings over the period of times to where my business was scuttled repeatedly. Once by Biden, once by Trump. So, in the future, if you're listening to my podcasts and you hear me calling out certain individuals, please understand it isn't against the entire party. It's against the false two-party system, which is only one mass uniparty. As we have seen in the last decade, Congress only cares about padding their own wallet. Congress only cares about their insider trading. Congress does not care about the constituents. Unless you get a big enough voice and a large enough platform to actually hold them to account. Yet, the people that are involved with the Epstein are still free. No matter how much Fox, CNN, MSNBC, and all the other so-called media networks say that they're there to protect the people, to provide you with information, they're hand in glove with the government. Otherwise, there'd be undercover reporting coming out every day about how this congressman, that congresswoman had violated the laws. Yet they carve themselves out special allotments in the law. Insider trading for congressional members is not insider trading. Strange when they control the budgets and the finances. So, I'm going to let this go. This is just the shot across the bow. The beginning of a new age of my podcast. I've missed you all. If you used to listen to me back then, welcome back. If you're new, it's nice to meet you. I hope to hear from you. Your interaction means everything. I'm tired of being walled up in the digital prison of places like LinkedIn, to where the analytics show that people see my work, yet no one interacts. And in the last month or so of working on Substack, I've had more interactions with more real people than I did in the last 10 years on LinkedIn. Again, this isn't how I wanted things to be. But here we are. I wanted to leave politics behind after 2019 and 2020, especially after running for Congress during COVID-19. Seeing reality of how the government became even more abusive when people just wanted to be able to sit in a park by themselves, surf by themselves, do other things, play a
game of catch with their son, to be then thrown into jail and threatened with prison. The totality, folks. You need to break away from the 3-second endorphin boost that you get. To step back, to take that 100,000-foot view upon this nation, to understand where we really are. If we are a nation of laws, then why is it they're not enforced? Unless you're poor, unless you're homeless, unless you're nobody. But if you're a congressional person, elected senator, elected House representative, governor, attorney general, people like that, they're untouchable. That's not how this country was designed. It was not the intent of the founding fathers to have this unilaterally unrepentant form of government that wages war against its own people, to create a tax farm to where we're the cows and the pigs. But here we are. And this is what it is. Welcome back to the Raven Rising podcast after a 6-year hiatus. I am Stephen James Cervantes, and this is the Raven Rising podcast.